right, everybody. Welcome to episode 256 of the Purple Friday show. I am here, host Miles, and yeah, let's just get right into it, man. Ravens lose a heartbreaker. Sunday Night Football. Got to have a game to the Patriots. This game was all over the place. You had a touchdown the first drive by the Ravens, and then the very next drive, I think the defense gets a stop. Ravens' next drive, Derrick Henry fumbles the ball, changes the whole vibe of the game. Ravens are then struggling. Defense, beginning game was able to get pressure on Drake May, then weren't able to get pressure on him. It was just all over the place. So many things happened in this game, and the Mark Andrews backwards lateral whatever he was trying to do, Marlon Humphrey not getting called in a clear pass interference call. Lamar getting back injury during the game. So I'll break this down just by, each side of the ball. On the offensive side of the ball, the most glaring thing I think everybody saw was Derrick Henry not being on the field for the last two drives of the game with like about 9 minutes left to go. I think he was over 110 yards, I think, at that point, rushing, had just scored a second touchdown. At this point in the game was gashing the Patriots defense for 15, 20 yards a pop almost. Like he was averaging close to 8 yards a carry in this game. And not having him on the field, while I think for the national media, maybe this is the first time they've seen this, but for us who are Ravens fans, we're used to seeing this. This is what we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing them. We're used to seeing these guys not put their best players on the field when they need to. Derrick Henry, we've seen not just this year. We go back to the AFC Championship game, I think in 2023, when they had Derrick Henry for that first year. And they didn't run him then. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He didn't get here to 2024. I'm sorry. He didn't get here to 2024. He was here last year. He didn't get here to 2024. But in that year, I think we led the league in rushing. Had a number of top 5 defense, AFC Championship game in Baltimore, and I think they ran the ball 5 times. And Harbaugh comes out and says, "Oh, I wish you ran the ball more, during that game." So there's that. Then in the divisional playoff game against the Buffalo Bills, similar thing. Fumbles are happening in the game. Lamar fumbles the ball. The Ravens defense not getting pressure on Josh Allen. And Josh Allen just kind of do every once in the field. Also, same thing. Didn't run the ball enough in that game. Tight game. It wasn't a blowout or anything. It was a tight game. Mark Andrews drops a pass in the end zone. Pivotal play that need to be there. That will lead to something later. And here we are, now going backwards where the Ravens are staring down, not making the playoffs at all at this point. And I remember the response that Harbaugh gave at the end of the game at the press conference at the end of the game, and basically said that Willie Taggart, who was the running back coach, and Derrick Henry or whatever, and Keith Mitchell had worked out a system or a rotation that, at this point in the game, even though clearly, look, it's Ravens are ahead, I think maybe by 3 or 6 points at this point. So they were catching up. They were catching up on them. But the Ravens still have possession of the ball. This is an opportunity for them to go maybe another touchdown, pretty much ices this thing. Not enough time left. You take about 6 minutes off the clock. They don't have enough time to score 2 scores. Maybe they did do onside kick or something, but whatever. But at this point in the game, Harbaugh said that this was Keaton Mitchell's time to be on the field, based on the rotation that they had. And I've watched several analysts, they use the basketball analogies. They've used baseball, I'll just go back to that. I mean, look, in the World Series, how many times have we seen in situations where they've had their ace pitcher available as a starter in Game 7 of the World Series, or in a closing game, like a game that they can go win the World Series? How many times have we seen that happen where they tell their ace or even number 2 pitcher, be ready to be available if we need to close this game out? I need you guys maybe for an inning or 2. I know you just pitched 2 or 3 days ago, but we need you to close this out. Same thing in basketball. If the guy is your star player, you during the game have a certain amount of required time, that they get on the bench to rest for a little bit, but it's a closeout game of a series, or trying to win the finals or something like that. Guess what? You're pulling that guy off the bench. Hey, I need you to go in there and finish this game out. I know we're only up by 2, we're only up by 3. We were up by 15 at one point, but they closed down on us. I need you to go and win this game for us. Happens all the time. And when Lamar goes out with the back contusion, to take Derrick Henry off the field or not put him on the field made no sense. Now, there was a fan that made a statement, made a comment saying they were videotaping, that, during that drive, and basically saying, yeah, they could see Derrick Henry and Willie Taggart having, like, I guess Derrick Henry was kind of frustrated, was irate a little bit about, I guess, not being on the field when he was supposed to be. And it's just, I was talking to my dad yesterday, and he made a great point. Like, what is this? Are we watching high school football? Like, is this Rudy? Like, is this a bowl game where, several guys have decided they're either transferring out or, they're graduating or worrying about their draft stock, so they're not playing. So now you start your second and third string guys. No, you're trying to go to this is a man's league. This is a pro league where guys get paid. And at this point in the game, you have to win out. We have, as Ravens fans, been on the other end of this where we've had to rely on other teams for us to get into the playoffs. And most of the time, it hasn't worked in our favor. Most of the time, it has not worked in the favor. I think it's happened maybe once or twice, but most of the time when it's left up to like this, it never usually works in our favor. You win out, you're in the playoffs. You control your own destiny. And to take that control away from your best players in a pivotal moment where you have to win the game. I don't know if Harbaugh wants Zach Orr to get an opportunity to close the game out. Clearly, the Ravens were up by more than 11 points, 12 points in this game. And it was another fourth quarter collapse where the Ravens defense they looked decent for most of the game. They were getting they got fumble recoveries, they got interceptions, they were getting pressure at some points during the game. But right when they needed to close the game out, they were playing quarters the whole time, only sending 3 players. The cornerbacks were giving the receivers 8-9 yards of cushion. Like Drake May was sitting back there patting the ball, looked like Aaron Rodgers just a week ago, just sitting there patting the ball, throwing the ball downfield. Marlon Humphrey getting burnt constantly. I don't know. Mark Andrews making that dumb play that he made at the end of the half, before the end of the first half. Zay Flowers dancing around on the field, getting the ball, fumbles again. I think they said he leads receivers this season in fumbles lost. He leads receivers as much as Zay Flowers has done for this team, and I think he arguably is the most talented wide receiver we've ever had, in a Ravens uniform. But he does make a lot of mistakes at the wrong time. And I was watching Shannon and Ocho's show, and Ocho Cinco, who was a veteran wide receiver playing for the Bengals for many years, said, one thing you teach these young wide receivers, they got to learn, this ain't college, man. You can't just sit there for 5 seconds and juke people out of their shoes and try to run left or right and outrun guys. You're not going to do that. He's like, when you learn the NFL, when you're catching the ball that close to the line of scrimmage, or even within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage like that, guess what? You better understand there are outside linebackers and even D linemen that are really right there. If you take too long, that's exactly what's going to happen. Said you got to make one lateral move, either to the left or to the right, and you either get down, you fall down on the ground and just take the yards you're getting, you can't get any more, or you go straight up the field. You don't dance around and run backwards, do jump cut backwards, whatever, because Zay does that all the time. It gets on my nerves. I cannot stand it. I hate it when he does that. But I feel like that's coaching too. Like, they look at film, and he's been doing this since he's been here. I would have thought by now, wide receiver coaches or somebody would have told him, hey, Zay, when you get the ball in the open field like that, you make one lateral move and you cut straight up, or you just get down. You cut straight up or you just get down. Don't do a lot of dancing around. And it was interesting that they said Chason from the Patriots, and they interviewed him in the Patriots locker room, and he said when they looked at the Ravens film, they realized, oh, they got a bunch of speed skaters out there. And the interviewer was, what do you mean by that? And he said, well, when you're speed skating, your arms are all, when you're running, when they're speed skating, their arms are all out like that. When you see speed skaters in the Winter Olympics, their arms are all left to right, just out. And they said when the Ravens apparently are just known for doing that. When they run, the ball's out here, it's up here, it's down here, it's not uptight like to the chest or anything. So they know, like, if they have an opportunity, they can just swat at it. They can punch it. They can do whatever. And here we are, going into week 17, and we hear this coach speak from Harbaugh saying, this is a disciplined team. We practice hard every week. We got to just work on it. We just got to work on it. Ravens been having this problem for years. This didn't just happen this year, folks. It's been happening during the Flacco years too. The fact that they get to the line of scrimmage with under 10 seconds, the delay of games, the false starts, defense is not closing. The Ravens since 2021 now lead the NFL as with the 11 or more point lead in the fourth quarter and losing the game. They lead the league now in those and not being able to close games out. They said teams now go in when they play ball. Somebody I was listening to Engraven Vids, shout out to Engraven Vids, and he said a guy said to him, imagine if Harbaugh was coaching for another team or something. Like he went next year and started coaching that team, and you met them in the AFC Championship game. Would you be hyped that you're coaching against Harbaugh? He's like, yeah, man, I'd be hyped, because he said that's how other fans are like when they play the Ravens now. Their MO out on the Ravens now is they can't close. So if you're within 10 points, if you're within 2 touchdowns, you can probably beat this team. They're gonna fold. They're gonna go into prevent defense or whatever. Their offense is gonna sputter. They're gonna forget how to close the game out, and you're gonna be able to get yourself back into this football game. You're gonna take the energy, all the air out of this team, and you're just gonna win. You're gonna find a way to win. Ravens fans, we can never be comfortable with this team. We can never be comfortable with this team at all. And that kind of goes to my take here of the Ravens being on life support. Gone are the days of Ray Lewis and Ed Reed. And I know a lot of us Raven fans, look back on those days with so much love and admiration, and just, what we had and what could have been, had the Ravens had just a more competent offense during those prime Ed, Ray, and Suggs years. The Ravens probably could have won 2 or more Super Bowls during that time span with the defense that they had with those guys, those Hall of Famers that they had in that defense at the time. And we just look back on like the attitude that was about physicality, was about accountability, it was about, playing loose, playing confident. Yeah, you're gonna make mistakes. It's life. It's pro sports. You're gonna make mistakes, but how do you bounce back from said mistake? It was all about, for the Ravens, taking chances, especially on defense. Like they were like, look, man, if you get beat on this play, you get beat. But if it's there and you read it right, I need you to jump that route, or I need you to do this, or hit that gap, or do it. I need you to go. If he gets past you, he just made a better play. Fine. But if the opportunity is there, I need you to take it. Go punch that ball out. Go swat the ball down. Go get that pick. Something. They took chances. And it feels like this team, and I saw it was a tweet during the game, said the Ravens are so unresilient, regardless of what John Harbaugh says. The Ravens are so unresilient because one mistake, and this is what the person said on X, was one mistake and this team just falls apart. They fall apart. They crumble. And I look, and I get it. It probably for them is PTSD. They saw the fumble from Derrick Henry, like, oh no, here we go again. Right? They're like, how many games can we go without having a fumble here, or making just the wrong mistake at the wrong time? We're rolling, we're doing the thing, because it felt like on that second drive, it felt like the Ravens might roll the Patriots. Like they were grooving, and then when Lamar gets kneed in the back, and then it just felt like everything was just going downhill. And then they finally found a way to get back in the game, but then he still ended up losing. They get a 2-touchdown lead, and you just never felt confident they were gonna hold it. And the statements now coming out from Harbaugh just make a lot of sense into why things are happening the way they're happening. As we remember during the bye week, there was a lot of stuff coming out, leaking out about Todd Monken, and it felt like that he was losing the offense. And Harbaugh had been very critical of the offensive scheme the last 2 weeks before the bye week, and why weren't they doing this and why weren't they doing that? And it kind of fell at the feet of Todd Monken. Meanwhile, the defense was not playing well, but it felt like the players were a lot more adamant about, hey, it's more on us. We got to get right. We got to do this. It's not really on Zach. It's kind of on us. Didn't really hear a lot of people coming to the support of Todd Monken. Didn't hear Lamar. Didn't hear D-Hop. I didn't hear Derrick Henry. I didn't really hear anybody come to the support of Todd Monken when that stuff was coming out. We did hear it go for Zach Orr. Didn't hear a lot from Todd Monken. So a lot of people knew when they were about, was it 1-5 at this point? When they were 1-5, everybody kind of knew, all right, Harbaugh's looking for a scapegoat. He's looking for somebody to blame for this. And Monken is not really a Harbaugh guy. Again, he's a guy that was hired because of his connection with his sister-in-law. And yeah, he's more of a he's not close with the family in any way. He just kind of knows them. It's like a 7 degrees of separation kind of thing, or 6 degrees of separation, whatever the term is called. But they knew if a friend knew a friend who knew his brother or his brother's wife or something like that, and was able to get in contact with John, and John got in contact with him and made him his OC. Zach Orr, on the other hand, is a Harbaugh guy. They drafted him. He came up through the ranks, as a linebacking core, played with under Ray Lewis and then for a few years, and now he's on the staff. So he's a Harbaugh guy. Monken is not. And when that stuff started coming out around the bye week, that made a lot of sense into why Monken was very agitated. We saw with the superfan Trippy. He had caught Monken, I think, going into the stadium or something, and I think Monken had said some words, not necessarily at Trippy, but at the fact that he was being criticized and kind of things like that, and he's very agitated and things, things going on, stuff around that. So there was that. And then when the stuff about now with the Willie Taggart thing coming out, saying, oh, that was on Henry and Willie Taggart kind of, and Derrick Henry kind of created that, for that how they created that rotation there. And I'm like, so your running back coach is just allowed to create the rotation for the running backs. You as head coach have no say if that's cool or not. And what I realized is John Harbaugh, I think the way his coaching, because he is not an offensive guru or defensive guru, he was a special teams coach when he got hired, when he was coaching for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's not a scheme guy by any means. And it feels like to me that he has plausible deniability when it comes to the coaching staff. He picks guys that, he can consider not necessarily better than him, but are capable enough, but not necessarily, I guess, wanted enough that they're going to jump ship to go somewhere else, So I think that's kind of one of his MOs there. And he kind of leaves the plausible deniability part like it's easy for him to just blame so-and-so. I can blame this position coach. I can blame that position coach because, it wasn't me. I was just, I kind of allow my staff to kind of create a committee, head coach by committee kind of thing. And, they kind of create their own narrative. So you have all these cooks in the kitchen and everybody's doing their own thing, it appears. But it makes it easy for Harbaugh if he needs to go to Bisciotti to point the blame at so-and-so, point the blame at this, point the blame at that. It wasn't me, I run the practices and I'm doing all this and, whatever. But from what we're seeing on the national media, a lot of them aren't having it. We're seeing a lot of people in the national media get on Harbaugh for, it feels like lack of leadership because he's trying to come off saying, in hindsight, I wish I had said something about Derrick Henry being on the field. Like, dude, you're the head coach. You've been the head coach for 18 years. I would think you would have learned something by now. And look, I get it. You may not have, a lot of play calling experience or whatever that may be, but you got to understand the flow of the understanding where you're at in the game. What's happened all season since 2021? You are notorious. This team has been notorious for not closing games out on offense and defense. Because I'm not going to put it squarely on the defense. I'm going to put on the offense too, because the Ravens will have some bad play calls on those last couple of drives at the end of games where they could have put teams away, but now are put their defense in a bad spot, where they have to go close it out. And they're either tired or gassed or whatever that may be. They didn't run enough clock out. They didn't put enough pressure on the opposing offense to make mistakes or whatever. You gave them too much time now on when they're on the defensive side of the ball to try to, stop this team. And they were like that. But that was the whole point of why we suppose they signed Derrick Henry. That's what we thought. We thought that's why they signed Derrick Henry, to close games out, to get to the third and fourth quarter. When we saw it after the AFC Championship game, when they got a 10-point lead, hey, let's put Derrick Henry in. Just you're gonna run through him. And when December and January football, this is literally why he was here, why he's been here, supposedly to close games out, and he's not even on the field for the last 2 drives of the game. That is unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. And so I don't know what's going to happen with Harbaugh. I anticipate Monken's gone just because of the narrative that's been around him this year, whether it's fair or not. If I'm Monken, I don't want to be here next year, especially because it feels like I'm the scapegoat now, that they're going to blame it on me. And they're going to blame on me anyway, so I'm just going to go elsewhere. They maybe have an opportunity, maybe go back to college, coach there or something. But nah, you're not gonna just throw me under the bus. And then we're back trying to find another OC if Harbaugh stays. Back trying to find another OC, and starting this all over again. We went through this with Greg Roman. Went through the same thing. Greg Roman's offenses looked showstoppers. Led the league in rushing offenses. They had these record-breaking seasons, record-breaking whatever, and rushing yards. And then by the time they got to January, stopped running the ball. They didn't know how to run the ball anymore. The one thing that got them there, they didn't know how to do that anymore. But they're having the same issues: penalties, false starts, guys fumbling the ball, guys dropping the ball. Just not. It appears as resilient as those Ed Reed and Ray Lewis teams were on defense. This group of players, regardless of their playoff experience, because they've been in the playoffs for a few years. Most of these guys have. They are, when the moment is there, they're just not ready for it. They aren't. I feel like they get scared, and because they can tell this Patriots game every game the last 3 weeks basically is a playoff game, and they just find ways to just choke. They beat themselves. It wasn't that the Patriots beat them. The Ravens beat themselves, but they were saying, the Chris Collinsworth was saying in the Sunday Night Football game, should Mike Vrabel send a thank you card to Harbaugh and them for not letting Derrick Henry back on the field? Because everybody's wondering, is Derrick Henry hurt? Is there something wrong with his hand, or what's going on? So the excuse he came out with saying, oh, it was part of the rotation. Everybody's like, no one's believing that. That coach speak may have worked a few years ago. It's not working anymore. It's not working anymore. And then I think it's also insulting to the fans because it feels like we haven't witnessed this already. Not just this season, but even last season. Same thing happened last season where Derrick Henry would go missing at the end of games, in tight games. He would just go missing. Be in the red zone. There's no Derrick Henry on the field. It feels like a lot of times they would run him one play. They would run one play in the red zone with him and then take him off the field. And then just do whatever. And roll to the right. They would do that one pass, roll to the right, cut off half the field, hope and pray that it works. That's their go-to. And yeah, it just, I don't know. It's almost like I'm not wishing that the Ravens lose on Saturday. I don't, but I think a lot of us Ravens fans kind of want like a mercy killing at this point. Like, just end it for us, please. The Packers, just end it. It's almost like if we win it, because we know what's going to happen, right? If we win the game and the Browns-Steelers game is close enough, the refs are going to make sure that somehow the Steelers lose and make Week 18 blockbusters. Turns into a Sunday Night Football game or a Saturday Night Football game. Got to have it all. Whoever wins goes to the playoffs. Steelers, Ravens, all the history that's there, blah, blah, blah. They will make tons of money off of that. The viewership from that game. So we know. But if the Packers beat the Ravens, it's over. Because a lot of things, sadly, a lot of us Ravens fans, like let's say the wild thing happens, right? The wild thing happens. And they beat the Packers, Steelers lose to the Browns, and then we get to week 18 and Ravens beat the Steelers. And we're in the playoffs. And we're all like, do we have a shot? And a lot of us will start feeling the hype. We're like, maybe we got a shot. Maybe we'll do it this time. Maybe we'll do it this time. And we'll be like crack addicts, man. We know what it does to us. We know the after effects of this. We're just chasing that high. We're chasing that high. Maybe we'll win the Super Bowl this time. Anyway, not with this group. Not the way they're playing football now. No, like we've seen this story before. We know what's going to happen. They're going to go away from everything that did work on offense and defense, completely forget how to play football, and they're going to lose by 6 points. A game that it'll be tight. It'll be a tight game. They're going to lose by 6 points. And we're right back where we have been the last 6-7 years. Right back where we started. We've seen this before. And it kind of takes me on the next point about the Ravens, this Jekyll and Hyde team. Usually we see teams go through ups and downs throughout the season. We'll see them, they may be sputtering along beginning of the year, but by the end of the year they figure it out, or they look dominant at the beginning of the year, and then they kind of in the middle they sputter a little bit, but now they figured it out a little bit, and they go through these ebbs and flows throughout the season. The problem with the Ravens is they're going through this in the middle of games. It's wild. If you watch Ravens football, it is a wild experience to watch. The Ravens will make one drive that looks phenomenal, and then the very next drive fumbles the ball, throw an interception. Can't get it, go 3 and out. Defense makes an interception or gets a forced fumble, great. Very next drive gives up an 80-yard touchdown. Like make a great field goal kick, 56-yard field goal kick out of bounds on the kickoff. Like they go through these Jekyll and Hyde moments throughout a game, not through a season, through games. They are so up and down. You don't know how. You just hope they're on the Jekyll side of things at the end of the game and not the Hyde ones. For those of you who don't know the story of Jekyll and Hyde, or Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, it's a story about duality of man. And this doctor who I think he was trying to find, or he was too timid about certain things. He was trying to find a kind of a serum to make him more confident, or to make him more, likable, whatever that may be. He takes this drink, it turns him into the worst of it. It inhibits all his worst thoughts and ideas. And then there's a point in the book where he starts to forget which one is Jekyll and which one's Hyde. He starts to think that he's Hyde, and not really that Jekyll was more of the mask than Hyde is. And I think that's where the Ravens are, is that, at least as fans, we're trying to look at it as the Jekyll part. This is the Ravens, right? This is the Ravens that we're used to when they're scoring on the drive and they're scoring 35 points a game. The defense gets takeaways and stuff like that. That's the one we think. That's what we think the Ravens are, the Jekyll, when really they're the Hyde. The Jekyll is not what really this team is. The Hyde is what this team is. When we see them make the mistakes at the wrong time, we see this team lack effort on some plays, games. The fact that they had to have these motivational speakers come in to speak to them week to week, I think is a bad. When you had to have a motivational speaker come to your football team, it feels like weekly to come get this team their energy up or whatever. It feels like their spirits are down. They don't know. They don't really know if they want to go play football. This team is the Hyde. They're the mistakes. They're the fumbles, the overthrown balls, the missed interceptions, the missed sacks, the broken the whiff tackles, the broken coverages. That's this team. This team isn't the Jekyll that we see from time to time. It feels like, to me, that's more of them getting lucky more than what we've mostly seen. The Jekylls have been so few and far between for this team that I think we try to ignore what the highs are for this team. The highs have been there all season. In fact, it's been not just season, but for a few years now. This team is Mr. Hyde. It is. There are no. I was listening to the radio today, and they were saying, with the Pro Bowl selections of, I think, Kyle Hamilton and Tyler Linderbaum, not Stout, Pat Ricard, I think that Zay Flowers made the Pro Bowl as like starters. And, usually every year we're like, yeah, we get that. That makes sense. And we're like, maybe honestly, I'll say this, outside of Zay and Kyle, I don't think anybody was deserving of a Pro Bowl selection at all from this team. And a guy on the radio made a great point. And I thought he was like, I don't think I can name 5 players on this team that can honestly say to me that they had a good year this year. We focus a lot on these coordinators and stuff and how the season has gone as an offense. But when we look at the plays that have been left on the field, just look the other night, on Sunday night, when we saw Nate Wiggins jump that route. Everybody's like, oh, no, it's a tough play. It's a tough play. Great players make great plays. You want to be great? You make that play. If Nate Wiggins makes that interception when he jumps that route, the game is over. He's probably taking that to the house. There was nobody there. He gets that ball, he jumps it, takes it to the house, the game is over. Done. But then what happens? He misses he drops the interception. They go down the field, score a touchdown. Ends up being the game winner for the Patriots. We've seen it time and time again. Every time we watch games, right, when you're a defense and you have a dead to rights turnover and you drop it, it always ends up backfiring on the defense. Always. You always end up giving up the touchdown usually. Because that was your opportunity to turn this back over in your favor. We know what's going to happen. They're going to end up scoring on you. Now that because you didn't get that dead to rights turnover. And they are the culmination of their mistakes, and I think it shows this year. And I also say the fans too, the fans as a fan base. When Lamar Jackson went down with his back injury, I saw a lot of people criticizing his toughness, criticizing his willing to want to win, everything. I get it. Fans are emotional right now. We've been going through the roller coaster all year. We've been watching this story unfold all season. It's been awful to watch. And there are a lot of people that have not been fans of Lamar Jackson. Let's be frank. When he got drafted, there are a lot of people that didn't like. There were a lot of people that didn't like Flacco, and I was the biggest Flacco supporter. Until the last few years when he was here. But I was the biggest Flacco supporter. But there were people that didn't like Lamar for reasons, and there were other people that liked Lamar because finally got a dual threat quarterback, and he can do so much with his offense. And he's a Heisman Trophy winner. Gave him a shot, gave him a chance, and all this other stuff. 2-time MVP, and who probably should have won the 3rd MVP last season. And for fans to come out and say the very next season, I don't think he wants to win. I think he's not tough enough and stuff like that. I'm like, are we serious right now? Are we serious? He's been hurt all year. I mean, even Tyler Huntley said that when he saw Lamar, he was in a lot of pain. He was like, yeah, Lamar looked like he was struggling to he was struggling to sit down. He was struggling to move, to turn around and do stuff or whatever. Like he looked like he was uncomfortable. And I remember there was a fan that called the radio in and saying, well, if you have a back injury, you shouldn't be able to stand. And I remember the guys on the radio show were like, are you serious? So there's only one type of back injury. He's like, so if you get a headache, it's automatically a migraine. Like there are different grades to different injuries, man. And even I'm glad somebody did call in who's a physical therapist. They said they've been a physical therapist for over 10, 20 years. And they said, when you're getting hit in the area of the back like that, he currently had a back contusion. He said a lot of times standing up is the only comfortable position for you to be in. He said, and a lot of times when you're getting hit there, when you have to bend and stretch that muscle, or when you sit down, you're leaning over or whatever like that, and you're not standing straight up, that muscle gets agitated and it gets tight, and whatever that happens. He's like, honestly, it hurt, or it hurts to lay down because then you're curved, your back is curved or whatever. He's like, the only comfortable position for you when those kind of injuries is standing straight up. That's it. He said a lot of times you can't sit down. You maybe you can lay on your side, and you have to lay at a certain angle with a pillow or something behind you. And he had to take a shot of was it Trubadol or whatever, so for back pain, but that apparently didn't hurt. That it didn't help. But several players have said that oh yeah, he's trying to. He got a shot of Trubadol, so he was hoping that it could maybe loosen the muscle up or whatever, so that he could get back on the field, but it just wasn't happening. And I also think too it was a culmination of all year. I think Lamar's probably had issues with his back from getting hit so much. This is the most time he's been hit in his entire career. In his entire career this season. And he's been hit on the ground and been on the ground and stuff like that. He's never had to go through this. And I will say that, I think, look, it's a culmination of everything. The hamstring, the foot, the toe, the ankle, whatever. But I'm not going to absolve Lamar of this either. When he has been in the game, he's looked unsure. He's looked like he's seeing ghosts sometimes, and I get it because of the line he's playing behind. He doesn't look like he's making decisions quickly enough. He holds the ball too long. He's not deciding to go or not, whatever that may be. He's overthrown guys, underthrown guys. He hasn't looked when he has been playing. He has not looked good this year. He hasn't looked good, so I'm not going to absolve him of this. I think Lamar definitely needs to look at really assess the next half of his career. He's going into you'll be year 9. He's going into, and he's getting ready to finish pretty much another contract, and because they have to redo it because of the cap hit. And he's kind of got to look at the next phase of his career, where he's not going to get faster. He's going to get slower as time goes on. And with these injuries, if some require surgery or not, that could definitely hinder, how agile he is that he was earlier in his career. So he's got to figure out what he needs to work on to get to that next part of his career to, play for the next 10 years. If he wants to play for the next decade, he's going to have to change his game a little bit. If he's going to be committed to not necessarily running all the time, he's going to have to be committed to changing how he kind of gets his style of play a little bit. But that also, I think, takes into effect where this team is right now. When I say the window is closed, because there's a lot of contracts coming up, Zay included. They're going into a 5th-year option. We saw Mark Andrews get signed to an extension, which means probably most likely gone. I don't anticipate them bringing back most of their line. I think Linderbaum, he's up for a contract. I don't think they're going to give him a big deal because they're going to have to sign more linemen to try to help out what's going on with this old line. So I just don't think they can really afford to keep Linderbaum at center. So they may have to just maybe realize, like, hey, maybe we can just go in the draft and find one instead of paying top dollar for a center. Derrick Henry, another year wasted. He's getting older. Now he's got fumble issues, so we have to wonder about that. The Bateman situation, maybe they might cut him. You're going to have to go to Marlon Humphrey for, either he gets cut or he has to come down on that money a little bit. You have no D-line help right now. Nat Madubuike might be, I don't know when we're going to hear from him, but it appears maybe his career might be over. You did sign Travis Jones, but he's not necessarily a, plus multiplier when I think about pass rush. He's good at run stop. That's fine. But you still also have the contract from Broderick Washington, who got hurt earlier this year, who never played. That's another bad contract. So Roquan Smith, who you're overpaying at middle linebacker, he's not the same guy they traded for a few years ago. He's not the same guy. Yeah, there's a lot of holes. A lot of holes this Ravens offense has got to fix. And depending on the Lamar Jackson contract situation, it could very hinder a lot of what they want to be able to do. Which is why I'm saying this iteration of the Ravens window is closed. I think it's their best chance to win was 2023 when they had the number 1 seed, home field advantage. Everything ran through Baltimore. That was the time to win it. And shoot, it could have been this year too. It could have been this year. The way the AFC is shaping out with how competitive or how mediocre everybody is this year, and the Chiefs aren't in it too. This was a perfect opportunity for the Ravens to get it all together and go win one. Perfect opportunity. You don't have to go to worry about Patrick Mahomes. I don't think I don't think they're gonna be able to capitalize on that. So another year wasted. You had to anticipate Mahomes will be back next year at some point. He tore his ACL, but he'll be back. Please believe that the Chiefs will, revamp their roster. The Chargers are only getting better right now. The Bills are the Bills. You got the Jaguars now getting good. The Colts are getting better. Once they figure out their quarterback situation, I think they'll be good for the few years to come. The Texans are getting confident. They're getting better. Yeah, the time was 2023. And so I think this window was closed. And then I think the other part of this too that nobody wants to talk about is with the Lamar Jackson contract situation, which they haven't heard anything really going on. We've seen other guys get deals, but the Lamar Jackson situation hasn't really been resolved, which should have been resolved last offseason, to be quite frank. I think you can't go into the offseason trying to deal with this kind of stuff with a looming contract decision that has to be made with your star quarterback. They should have been, night and day, we're going to get this deal done before 2025 starts. Before this season starts, we got to get this deal done. Behind the scenes, I was telling my dad, I think that what you're seeing Joe Burrow do publicly with how frustrated he's been and how vocal he's been with the kind of his feelings about where the team is and where it's going, and the lack of success that they've had there. I think what Joe Burrow is saying publicly, Lamar has been saying in private. I think Lamar is not going to say that to the media or anything else like that. But I think he's saying the same thing privately as well. I think he's saying the same thing. That I think he didn't have fun this year. I think he's looking at it like, am I really gonna be able to win a title? I've been here for going into 9 years, and you're looking at that clock, and some quarterbacks have won later on in their careers, but it's not necessarily guaranteed. There's no guarantee you're going to make it to a Super Bowl. And you were so close, AFC Championship game in Baltimore. You were literally, a few plays away from possibly going to the Super Bowl and didn't get there. And Lamar probably has to be thinking about that too. Like, can I actually win a title here? And I think he may be asking Bisciotti or even EDC, like, if I don't see any significant, I think they'll work out a deal, an extension. But I also believe this extension will be palatable for possibly a trade where they may call around to some teams and say, hey, what would you guys be willing to pay Lamar Jackson? And if we signed him to that contract and we just trying to trade it, got some picks or some players for him, that you guys would be fine with that contract. I guarantee you those discussions are being had right now. I know we don't want to talk about it. I know we don't want to admit that that's happening, but that is probably what's happening. I guarantee you, EDC, if he's doing his due diligence, because this is the nature of the business, right? This is a business, and carrying a $70 million cap hit is just unrealistic if you're going to be a playoff team going in next season. And with how the Ravens have been drafting as of late, they're not hitting on a lot of these draft picks and these comp picks that they love so much. They're not building a team very well right now through the draft. They're cutting a lot of these players and having to go sign practice squad players before the season starts. So they're not drafting that well. So if you're carrying a $7 million cap hit, you're going to lose a lot of good players and replace them with a whole bunch of, Walmart baggers. And I believe that the Ravens are exploring that option. That and I'm pretty sure Lamar's probably involved in those talks too. He's like, look, if y'all are gonna keep John and Monken, if y'all are gonna run this back next year, I don't want to be here for that. I want to go somewhere else. I think that's very possible. That if they decide to keep John or give him another 2 year, we're going to let John finish out his contract, which I think he has 2 years left. Then I think then Lamar's like, well, I don't want to be here 11 years into this, and I haven't won a Super Bowl, or at least gotten to a Super Bowl. If he's looking at other options, Minnesota, look at Minnesota. Minnesota will be available. I feel like Minnesota can make it work. I know Lamar don't like playing the cold, but if you got Justin Jefferson to throw the ball to, Whew. Minnesota can make it work. Tua, Miami, not necessarily because they think they have a dead cap hit of $90 million if they were to cut Tua, and I just don't think that he's tradable. I don't think anybody would trade for Tua, so they're kind of just stuck with Tua. So I don't think he'd be able to go to Miami. But there'll be other teams. The Saints. Well, no, they're not the Saints. The Saints are still. They still got their own cap issues they're dealing with Sean Payton. I think there's going to take them a few years to kind of get from out under that. But there are a few teams that would be willing to move heaven and earth to go get Lamar Jackson if they got the right talent. The right talent there. Look at the Cardinals. You know, Kyler Murray might be on his way out. You could go to Arizona. Warm weather. You got Marvin Harrison Jr. to throw the ball to. Possible. So I think that the Lamar may be telling ADC and them, like, hey, look, you know, if y'all are going to run this back with Harbaugh for the next 2 years, I'm not going to be here for it. I'm out. And the Ravens will get some draft picks for him and then have to pick out of this terrible QB draft. They've already said that this draft class, his QB draft class coming in is not good. And with the fact that the Ravens have not been able to develop anybody, we haven't seen anybody develop outside of Kyle Hamilton. I have seen no development from O-line to D-line to linebackers to whatever. I have seen like no development. Guys have regressed. Guys have had like spurts here and there, but most guys, if they came in good, they're good. But a lot of these guys, I have yet to see any kind of development from this coaching staff. So I'm like, even if they were to draft any of these quarterbacks, I don't think they have the people in the building to get the most out of said quarterback. It's going to be Steve Bisciotti has a big decisions to make this offseason, more than he's ever had. He has big decisions to make because I think he knows if he sticks with Harbaugh, Lamar's going to demand a trade. Lamar's going to want out. I didn't want to admit that to myself, but I think that's what's going to happen. Lamar's going to want out. The fans will riot because now we don't have our MVP quarterback anymore. Some fans will be happy because they didn't want Lamar in the first place, but then we're stuck in mediocrity again. There'll be a lot of players that will jump ship. They'll demand trades. Like, I don't want to be here for this. If y'all going to run this back, Derrick Henry, like, well, you can trade me too. I'm out. You can buy me out of my contract and release me, whatever. I'm out. I don't want to be here for. There'll be a lot of guys that will want to jump ship if Lamar leaves and not sign here. And the Ravens are now be in a rebuild mode, and who knows how long that would be. But if you have an opportunity to go get a head coach, and there's a few candidates out there who are either defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators that you're willing to. But I think if you look what the Eagles did, and when Andy Reid so many years to get to the NFC Championship game, they didn't win it. They got one Super Bowl. They didn't win it. They got rid of him. They got rid of Andy Reid. Or that for both of them. The Eagles have won 2 Super Bowls since, and Andy Reid's won 3 since. So it worked out for both of them. Same thing with Doug Peterson. You know, he won a Super Bowl. They won a Super Bowl with Doug Peterson. And then after that, they cut him. They released him. They released Doug Peterson. So it's understanding when it's time to move on. It needs to be understanding when it's time to move on, because where you are right now is not. You're not getting anywhere. You're going. If anything, you're going backwards. The best thing for the Ravens to do would be to get rid of John Harbaugh. Let him in amicably, saying, you know, we had a mutual agreement I decided to step away from football or whatever. Or I'm going to go coach at college or something like that or whatever. And do that amicably. But I think if you go the other route and you decide I'm sticking with John Harbaugh, you're going to see a lot of other things happen that a lot of fans, I think, aren't ready to see. This team would implode. This team would no longer be a destination place for people to come play. You complain about the Orioles and people not wanting to come play here, they're not going to want to play in Baltimore. The reason why they came here is because of how the Ravens used to carry themselves with the Rays and Ed and Suggs and them, and the level of intensity and playing at the bank, and the Ravens defense was a tough black and blue division and stuff. And for the last 10 years, you're looking at this team, you're like, no, this team ain't it. It ain't run well. It feels like a lot of infighting going on. There's a lot of finger pointing going on. There's now there's a lack of accountability. The guys appear to be just there's not. If you're a football player coming into here, and Suggs said this before, he's like, it feels like they got a bunch of school teachers out there instead of football players. That it just feels like these guys are just going through the motions. That some of these guys are just, they're good players, but they're not willing to take it to the next level. They're just not capable of taking it to the next level. They're not those kind of guys. And we see those every year with the Ravens getting these A pluses or A minuses in these draft classes. And when you go back and look at these draft classes, when you go back and look at these draft classes for the Ravens, how many of these guys are actually playing in the league now? Not just on the Ravens, but just playing in the league. Period. Not a lot. The Ravens have not been hitting on the drafts that they used to with Ozzie. They're not finding those kind of players. Talent's not there. Training staff's not. Like, it's just everything. It feels like from the top down is not equaling the level of playoff caliber teams that we expect this team to be. I think Lamar Jackson has mastered a lot of things because of his ability to go win games doing crazy plays and just winning just by his sheer talent. But I think this year it showed when it came down to coaching and the fact that you're going to have to coach up some people. And I think watching that Steelers-Lions game showed me a lot too. With TJ Watt being out, and you see Jack Sawyer, and with Herbig being out and some other players, they literally had their guys their backups step up and make big plays, make huge plays in these kind of gotta have it games. And they're being coached up. They're coached up and they're ready to play, to be in that moment. And I'm seeing this across the league. You see with the 49ers, and Brock Purdy was out for 8-9 weeks, and Brandon Ayuk has been out for the whole year. Fred Warner, I think, injury, he's out for the whole season. All this other stuff that's happening with them, and they're in the playoffs. They locked into the playoffs now. They've won like 4 or 5 games in a row. The Steelers, like I said, with the Steelers, Aaron Rodgers playing with a broken wrist, but now he's in the zone right now. He's playing well. Kenneth Gainwell, who a guy was a castaway, has become a huge part of their offense. They're doing well. So I don't want to hear the excuse of injuries and all this other stuff going on. Teams, everybody in the NFL at this point of the year has injuries, has significant injuries. Even look at the Chargers, lost both of their tackles. Slater and all are both out for the season, and they're going to make the playoffs. So I don't want to hear anything about injuries. These guys, these coaches, and these coaching staff have been able to overcome a lot of these issues and still make the playoffs. So I want to hear it's been injuries and all this other stuff. So I'm like, it's just the fact that the Ravens, they were able in the past to coach guys up. We saw it on defense all the time, where next man guy would get hurt and next guy come in and be able to make impact immediately. We're not seeing that anymore. We're seeing a lot of these guys outside of maybe our Darius Washington and maybe Alohi Gilman, who are considered, I guess, second string guys, make any kind of impact on this team right now on defense. Like it's not there. They're not being coached up. They're not making any kind of impact. When it feels sad that when Nnamdi Madubuike got hurt, it just everything imploded on the defensive line. They're getting no pressure. One guy gets hurt and now they can't rush the passer anymore. So yeah, I mean, it's weird. It's been a weird season, but I think it's time to blow it up. I think it is. So I'll discuss real quick. The week was this week 17 coming up against the Packers. We still don't know much right now about Jordan Love and Lamar Jackson's injury status. Lamar's day to day, and I anticipate he's not going to play. He's not going to practice most of the week. And Jordan Love's dealing with concussion protocol, so there's a possibility that both of them may not be able to play. But I think the Packers right now are locked into their playoff spot, so they don't really have anything to play for in this game. They're locked in at the 7th seed. They're locked in there, so they don't really have much to play for. So could be advantageous for the Ravens, in that game to go maybe try to win it in Green Bay. But you have to wonder what the attitude of this team is right now. Just mentally, another blown game, a game you should have had. You're 3-6 at home, the worst home loss record in M&T Bank in franchise history. This usually does not happen. Ravens have had some bad years before. We've had bad years, but they don't have losing records at home. They've always been able to win most of their home, like 85, 90% of their home games. 3-6 at home. just shows you the allure, whatever the force field, whatever you want to call it, is gone. The majesty, all that stuff, the fear, the fearfulness, whatever it was coming into the bank, gone. No one's afraid to come into the bank. When I saw, heard, and all those Patriot fans yelling MVP about Drake May, and our fans were just, scattered around, I'm like, this is embarrassing. Like this, the bank used to be feared, man. Bank people used to hate coming in here night games against those guys on defense. They knew they were coming to a dogfight. They knew they had to prepare, go into the weight room an extra day to get ready for the Ravens game. Not anymore. Not anymore. They're not afraid of this team. They're just not. And so going into this game against the Packers, I think it's gonna be really about if the Packers sit people. Again, they said they're locked into the 7th seed, so it'll be more of a matter of do they sit anybody, and just the attitude of this team right now. If Lamar doesn't practice all week, I think the best thing to do will be to start Snoop, and kind of work the game plan around that, and maybe you hope you win. Again, it really doesn't matter because the Browns the Steelers beat the Browns, the Ravens are out anyway. So it really depends on how this team comes out, how they play on Saturday. If they come out and they play hard, maybe there's a little bit to be salvaged there. But if they come out and put another stinker up, or just appear to be just lay down, so to speak, and just kind of let it happen to them, and the Packers just cruise to a victory, then this team has shown that it's done, like mentally and spiritually, whatever you want to call it. They're just done. It's over. So I don't have a score or anything for this game because I'll kind of have to wait and see what happens at the end, because we may be doing our version of State of the Ravens after this game, because the Week 18 wouldn't matter. So yeah, we'll see what happens over the next few days. It's already Tuesday. The game's on Saturday, so it's already a short week. So again, I don't anticipate Lamar practicing all this week with that back. And it's dark times right now. We don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty on the horizon for this team and what it looks like going into 2026. But all that depends on the Bishotti. One decision can make a lot of dominoes fall. A lot of dominoes. So that's it for me. I'll catch you guys next week or whenever this season's over. And we'll see what happens. And me and the guys will give our State of the Ravens at some point and kind of discuss what's going on. But that's it for me. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.